And you had a big aha moment with the code earlier on in the week.
Oh yeah, I managed to reduce the. Okay, so there's a function that will create the layout of the dungeon, right? The algorithm that makes the corridors, and then it picks a certain percentage, a quarter of the tiles, and replaces them with a room. But the rooms don't have walls and doors built in; those are added separately. So the script that adds the walls and doors. And I had what we had for Godot Getaway, which was okay. If this is room type 0, then north is false, east is north is false, east is false, south is false, west is false. If this is room type 1, north is true and east is false, and it's binary, right? And like, surely I could use a bitwise operation here and just do this easily. Mikey, would you like to show off the bitwise operation?
Yes, you'll have to navigate to where it is, or help me navigate there.
Click on the wallmaker, on this wallmaker script.
Beep.
And then let's go into distraction free mode. And if you click on output down the bottom,
trying.
I would mock Windows at this point, but Linux does this too. And now if you do Control /, you can get rid of the sidebar.
Control A delete. Yep.
Okay.
Control slash. Control slash. Control
slash.
Control /. I'm good at listening.
Okay, so we have defined a wall and a door. Currently, we're not using rare floors, so ignore that for now.
Have I deleted something here?
I don't believe so.
Okay, cool.
Go back. We have the size of the room. This is important because we're dealing with the coordinate in an abstract sense, but each room is 20 by 7 by 20. So if the coordinate is 105, we need to multiply it by the room size to actually move it to the right global coordinates. Okay, we have a list of positioned walls. The first one is on the start room because I don't want it to place a wall where the start room is. Then we're defining these constants. North is 1, east is 2, south is 4, west is 8. Binary, right? We're just going up in orders of magnitude by powers of 2. Okay. If we're going to make walls, we have 2 arguments coming in. What is the room type? This is just a simple integer between 0 and 15, which is a way of saying which walls are filled in: the north wall, the east wall, the south wall, the west wall. And then we have the coordinates. Okay, here's the fun part. Define the north wall. If the room type bitwise and north, bitwise north is 1. In other words, if they both have the 1 bit, instantiate it as a wall. Otherwise, it's a door. And they do the same with the east, the south, and the west. This changed this from 145 lines of code to 70 odd. And I felt so pleased with myself.
And obviously a much better learning journey and a much more scalable code base. Because that's the thing. You can go through and have functional code that's a bit long in the tooth, but the moment you need to add something else in, if you need to modify several functions and add further code just because you've added something in, it's just not scalable.
Roderick says, how's working with Windows 11? Blissful. I'm not doing it.
I've had no issues with Windows 11. I mean, I am kind of techie, so that maybe I do have issues and I don't realize they're issues.
That's interesting because it's not usually that. Well, I guess Windows is more sort of rewards a more techie interface than something like an Apple Mac, which is very much like let's pull back and abstract it further. I'll be honest, I haven't worked with Windows 11 or.
Perhaps Roderick, you can expand your question. Is there anything specific about Windows that you're querying, whether or not it's a thing with Blender, whether it's a thing with Godot, gaming? I mean, one of the reasons to get Windows 11 would be to have DirectX 12, because I believe it's not available in its full flavored version with Windows 10 or something along those lines.
Proton seems to manage it okay, but
so There are many. There are many things. I mean, I used to work on Linux. I even ran on and wrote an Unreal course using Linux, and that was interesting because I remember it vividly because I prototyped on my laptop, which was Windows, and everything was working in terms of tessellation. So where you move the geometry based upon a texture rather than actually having real geometry there, it's generated at runtime, and I then moved over to the Linux machine. It turns out that the NVIDIA drivers did not support tessellation. So
Yeah,
I then had to spend, as I said, 4 or 5 hours debugging, and then realized, oh, it does work, but
just not here.
I can't teach it on Linux.
Yeah. Roderick's expansion, the existence of Windows 11 in your computer in general.
So I I'm a bit platform agnostic, to be quite honest. I can hop
I am
between.
too, in the sense that you should use the platform that
Yeah,
you enjoy
exactly.
using.
And I've done a lot of work on my Mac, which is just set over there. No problems at all. It's a bit more quirky when it comes to audio interfaces. It's very, as Jan was alluding to, they're very prescribed. You will do things in this way. It's like, come on, Windows has got a volume mixer. If I don't want this application making noise, I should be able to turn it off. And that's a simple app download, and you've got that functionality back. But you shouldn't have to with a, with a fully featured
Yeah, I mean
set.
that. I played a little bit with Windows 11 and it felt very unfamiliar. But to be honest, same thing happened when you went from Windows 3.1 to 95
Yeah,
and
yeah.
from 95 to Vista. And like, that's expected, right? Um,
The other
I
thing
will
I
say
should
that,
allude to is that, so if you don't know, we've got quite a large household. There's 7 of us in the household, so there are basically 7 computers, not including any extra ones like servers, etc. So I'm in a position where I'm often sorting out problems on multiple machines at any one time during the week. And so them all being the same actually helps out with that. So I made
yeah,
sure that
totally.
they might have all been Windows 10, but then when I upgraded to Windows 11, I just made sure they were all Windows 11 because I don't want to have to remember on this version of Windows the control panel says
Yeah,
this, or it's
definitely.
under this sub menu. It can get very
Now,
confusing
I've just
quickly.
noticed the time and I need to make some dinner in a minute.
Nom, nom,
So
nom,
we
nom.
should move on to if there are any more questions,
Oh,
concerns,
is it really
thoughts.
that time
Totally,
already? It is.
it is.
Oof.
Um, I will say that I enjoyed using Windows up to the point where I was very unlucky. There was a bug that hit like a small percentage of users, and I was one of them, which
Oh,
deleted
yes.
everything. Like it just deleted all the information on a drive. And I don't mean like, oh, you can't access it. I mean, it went and wiped the drive. Um, and that was tough. And then it kept doing a bunch of updates without asking me if I wanted to do
Yeah.
them, which is how this bug happened. And then it kept sharing information. I'm like, you know what? I might be done.
Yeah. That's one
Is
thing that I it's the whole, you're giving Microsoft a lot of information when it comes to Windows. The telemetry, is that what they called it, where they collect data? And some
yeah.
people are just not comfortable with that, and that's, that's horse for courses at that point. And as Rotorix
I mean,
just,
one of the main reasons
I was just
one of the main reasons I went into well, I preferred Windows in the first place was it allowed me to make those choices. And when those choices started being made for me, and that starts having a real world impact.
Hmm.
Like if I make a decision and lose all my data, that's on me, right?
It
And
works when you've got a more techie background. Like you're quite comfortable in Linux
I
doing
mean,
command line and that.
you could do things like if I wanted to, I could go into Linux and remove the super user do command so that you never have to do that. I'm not going to do that because that's insane, but you could do, right?
But the counter argument there is someone reads that online oh, I'm fed up of doing that, and they've now got a completely open compromise system without the
Agreed.
knowledge that that's a bad thing. So
Absolutely.
that's like the flip argument of maybe Apple being so locked down with it. Thank you, Roderick. Yeah, there's going to be quite a few more updates on the assets. One of the
And
things that,
on the actual in-world implementation of it as
yeah,
well. Like it's very early days.
one of the things that Jan and I were playing around with and trying to sort out earlier was, and I don't know whether you were here on the you've been here since the beginning, but for those who haven't, when we're walking through the level, it was quite obvious in Godot that there needs to be a ceiling of some description. There needs to be
Yeah.
something up other than a flat
Well,
surface.
depending on what we do with the camera. Like
Yeah.
if we keep the camera sort of up by 30 degrees and you never see the ceiling, then that's just extra geometry we don't need.
Yeah.
But in the angle we're at right now, the assets just don't look right.
No. It looks very Wolfenstein 3D-esque in terms of its
I
of its
wish
feeling.
Wolf 3D looked like that.
But that's the feeling I'm getting, like early days, and that's
No,
because
I'm
of where
with
we
you.
put the camera. Yeah,
And because of the particle
yeah. Pew
smell
pew.
thing.
I didn't do that nearly
Yeah.
enough. Awesome. Well, it is time for us to wrap up this week. Next week will be a more carefree stream. We haven't decided quite what, whether it's a game analysis, a thingy analysis where you look at a particular thing within a game, gameplay mechanic, yep. Or it might just be us having a bit of a laugh, which is like normal. But
Yeah, or it might be, I don't know, like a nap.
I mean, that's the thing, right? People do tune in to watch people sleep.
It's creepy, but sure. Yeah. Meanwhile, everyone, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Mikey, for the lovely breakdown of what happened.
You know, I've got to
Thank you,
look
neighbors
for
dogs.
I've got to look for Firefox because yeah, you keep talking while I find it.
Okay. I hope you've enjoyed it. Certainly, we've been enjoying putting it all together, and I keep exporting everything and send it to Mikey just so he gets a feel of what it looks like in world, because it really is different seeing these assets in Blender and seeing them in Godot. Once you put in the lighting and the materials and the volumetrics, it makes a huge difference.
Thank you, everybody. And it's calming. Why not? Yeah, that's about the sleepy stream, I presume. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this week. Let me try again. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this week. We'll see you next week. Bye!
Bye!
That's it!
Press it. Press it.
Boop!
Have you pressed it yet?
Yep.